Hello everyone, I'm back with another video. In this one, I play against the French defense. My opponent is almost 100 rating points ahead of me, so I was trying to somehow manage his tact. Also, I've not been playing too well recently. I've lost a bunch of my rating points. So let's see how it goes. So I start with e4. My opponent plays e6, indicating that he will go for the French defense. I play d4, opponent plays d5. So typically in this structure, there are, if white knows how to play against the French defense, there are a lot of variations. The computer is already suggesting a move like e5, which is the advanced variation of French defense. There is something like a knight to c3, which indicates the win-over variation. So if you, as a white player, know how to play these combinations and these lines very well, please go ahead and do so. Otherwise, these can lead to very sharp positions, which the black player, having playing French defense all along against all e4 moves, will be more familiar with. So, in case you don't know how to play against the French defense, this is what I'll suggest. Take stakes, just simplify the position into something which is out of prep for your opponent, and kind of equalish for you as well. And since my opponent was very high rated at this point in time, I did not want to go into that kind of complications. So simple developing move, knight to f3. He develops his bishop. I develop my bishop to d3, readying for castle. Uh, he comes and pins my knight. I simply castle. Um, he puts his knight on e7. I put my rook on the open file, pinning his knight. Pretty simple at this point in time, nothing fancy. Next, he plays knight to c6, attacking my pawn on d4. So I simply play c3, protecting my pawn. Now, if you notice in this position, both my bishops are open. My rook is in an open file. Um, None of my pieces are completely blocked. He does not have a very big attack on any of my squares. So it's pretty equalish, pretty drawish, and something that I kind of intended out the opening in this kind of situation. He plays knight, queen to d7, which kind of indicates that he might be going for a queenside castle. Um, I simply play knight bd2, developing another piece, protecting the knight on f3. In case bishop takes on f3, I can take back with my knight. So at this point in time, he plays a pretty strange move f6, and I spent some time at this point in time to just understand the purpose of this f6 move. Because what I was thinking at this point was probably he was going for something like g5, h5, just doing a pawn storm. But just like an f6 move, he could have easily gone f5 in my opinion, if that was the idea. And you typically start your pawn storm from the flank pawns rather than pawns which are towards the center. So I couldn't understand this move, to be very frank with you, but it was pretty clear at this point in time that he was going for a queenside castle. Because if he was going for a kingside castle, there was no way he would push his f pawn like that. So I started moving my pawns towards the queenside, uh, and he went for the queenside castle. Um, and then I played knight to b3. The idea behind this move is to be able to play b5 in the future, and then at that point in time, the knight won't have the possibility to come to this b5 square because my knight kind of attacks that square. My knight kind of attacks that square. So that was the basic idea for this move. And a lot of times when you just play this move b5 here, and the knight comes to this a5 square, uh, even though the knight is kind of paralyzed in that corner of the board, but uh, your attack also kind of gets you know uh, uh, blocked. So you can't have your pawn storming on the queen side like ideally you would. So that's why this preparatory move of knight to b3. Uh, at this point, he took my knight on f3, releasing me of the king, and I happily took back. I mean, it was just even the computer uh, does not like him uh, taking that knight, because the knight was not doing anything, not attacking anything. Your bishop was spinning my piece to my was spinning my knight to my queen. So I did not clearly understand again why he took that. So a series of strange moves from my opponent. But at this point also there is no material advantages uh, that I have. Uh, he plays another strange move, f5. Still don't understand why he plays that. Um, Another important motive to realize whenever your opponent goes for a queenside castle is that a lot of times uh, the king and the king and the queen can be skewed, right? And at this point in time, the move bishop takes on f5 does not, uh, cannot be played because the knight guards it. But keep an eye out for that each time your opponent plays a queenside castle move. It has happened to me a bunch of times. I have done it to my opponent a bunch of times. That this skewer typically happens. Uh, but my idea again, he kind of ignored this threat on his c6 knight. So I just pushed my pawn to attack the knight, and now the knight does not have a good square to go to. The a5 square has been taken away, so it needs to just retreat back. Uh, and so the knight is completely out of play at this point in time. So my opponent, even though material wise there is no material advantage, my opponent is playing a piece down, right? So that's the idea. So now you would see how I try to, use this cure that I have. So first I play knight to c5. The idea here is uh, to take away the defender of this knight, uh, which is the this bishop. At some point in time, I would just take this knight and then play the skewer. That's the idea. Take this knight out of the picture, and play the skewer. So taking this knight is not possible if it has multiple things guarding it, right? So you need to take out its guards slowly to be able to finally attack the knight. So this was one of the moves, and the other idea for this move is to have like a pawn majority closer to its king. Because at this point in time, the bishop is kind of forced to take my knight, because otherwise the queen is pretty much toast. The queen has to go back, uh, get pinned to this. So if it just goes back like this, you can take this piece with a check. This knight cannot take because you have a discovered attack on the queen. Cannot take because you have a discovered attack on the queen. So it's pretty bad for him. So it's kind of forced for him to like take one knight. And now the other thing to notice here is that I have a huge pawn majority on the king side. The knight cannot easily come out. And even if he starts, so he has to take like two, three preparatory moves before this knight can come. So he starts with one of those preparatory moves to break down my pawn majority. Uh, but at this point, I start to notice uh, that this knight is very, very weak. Um, so I start first by pinning the knight, and at this point, it's almost done. The game is almost done. He will definitely lose material, if not his whole queen. Um, So the idea that the computer suggests here is to protect. Yeah, and that's one of the moves that he played. But here again, you see the computer is suggesting 7.7 advantage for you. So I just take, and of course, you would not like to take with your queen because my rook attacks. So he takes with his rook, but uh, now the queen and the king are finally skewered. Right? So this was the idea that I was kind of working towards for a long time. So you need to have like a few ideas, few hypotheses to keep working, and one of them might come true. Not always it will come true. And even though what the computer is suggesting here, you can just pin my bishop, but once I take with my bishop, it's a check. So uh, you can't. So if he plays, uh, he just moves over his rook to pin my bishop. I just take the queen, and it comes with check. So don't have the opportunity to take back my queen at that point in time. You have to first manage this check, and once you manage this check, I'll have the tempo to move out of the way of the rook. Yeah, or even take the rook. So yeah, even if you give me a check here, I just take back, and the skewer still exists. So you will lose your queen for a bishop, and at this point in time, uh, all of 18 moves long, this game ended as my opponent resigned. So yeah, I really like this game. After a long time, I played a decent game. So yeah, it was comeback of sorts. So I hope you learned something out of the game. Uh, Take it. Bye.